Welcome shooters, and thank you for tuning in to Top Predator Shooting Channel. In this series concerning everyday carry or EDC, we're going to talk about the practical aspects of EDC as it pertains to avoiding or counteracting the unfortunate circumstance of being confronted with a threat. Whether having previous experience or considering everyday carry for the first time, the topics discussed in this series will give you a perspective on the preparations, commitments, and responsibilities of everyday carry. We'll start the series by talking about developing the modern mindset for everyday carry and preparing for EDC practices even before adopting EDC practices into your daily routine. We'll then move on to discuss the several factors on how to determine what primary and support everyday carry items you may need and incorporate them into your particular lifestyle. We'll also cover maintenance and use of these items side by side with simple tactics in order to build a more safe, responsible, and effective self-defensive package. With all of that to consider, let's break it down here in part one with the development and formation of the mindset, which we should all consider to be our biggest tool and the foundation to the building blocks of everyday carry. How many times have you heard from someone that they've bought a firearm or other defensive device so it's there just in case they need it? Well, there is much more to it than just that. Just by having a firearm or other defensive item available and not fully understanding the commitments and responsibilities of everyday carry or having that weapon available can be more of a liability to you and those around you. A large part of your self-defensive package should be to form and continually develop a strong mindset. Now, one of the most serious factors when it comes to developing a mindset for everyday carry and self-defense is the realization that we may have to injure or take the life of another human being. We also have to accept the fact that we're probably going to be injured ourselves from that threat. There is a principle, sometimes referred to as a rule, that within 21 feet, an attacker has the advantage over a defender and only takes about 1.5 seconds for that attacker to close the distance. There are many videos out there concerning the 21-foot rule, and is a real eye-opener when practiced with another person at a range or even doing your self-defensive drills on a timer. Most often than not, the attacker is able to reach the victim, and even if you do draw your firearm and act upon that threat, that doesn't necessarily mean that that threat is immobilized instantly. And because the attacker will probably reach us, we have to put into our mindset to cope with the fact and operate that we may sustain some sort of injury from that attacker. So a large part of your mindset as it pertains to your self-defensive package should be dedicated to implementing open hand techniques to gain a better distance away from the threat and to quicken your reaction to that threat, and not just solely relying on your everyday carry items. That's why building your mindset should be set on the premise to escape or survive that threat, not necessarily go for the firearm and neutralize the threat straight off. Going for that firearm and neutralizing a threat should be our last resort. On the flip side of that coin, There may be the unfortunate instance of where the firearm actually is the first best option to use against a threat. As we build our mindset, we have to realize that even though we use the firearm against a threat, it doesn't necessarily mean that that threat is immediately immobilized. This is where we must rely on some of our escape techniques to ensure that we survive the instance at hand. When it comes to continuing to build our mindset, we must realistically take into account our physical abilities and limitations. This will help dictate our everyday carry items in our self-defensive package and the tactics that we use against a threat. The easiest and probably the most effective tactic that you can use to help build your mindset and to exercise every day, no matter where you're at, as part of your self-defensive package, is situational awareness. By actively observing your environment, you can quickly identify risks of where a potential threat may be. And if a threat should present itself, you've just gained valuable time on how to counteract that threat. You can also visualize what-if scenarios and what steps you would take in the future if a similar risk or threat should present itself. You could also take these scenarios and knock them out physically at the range while you do your self-defense drills. You can then, through practice and repetition and in a controlled environment, develop the seemingly best actions you would take in a particular situation. And more importantly, by working out these scenarios that you visualized physically at the range, you can see what areas you need improvement in. Visualizing and practicing what-if scenarios not only helps to continually build your mindset and situational awareness, but also builds your confidence on how to appropriately and quickly counteract a potential threat while streamlining and simplifying your everyday carry items and tactics. Here are a few common tasks that we all perform where situational awareness and our mindset come into play. As you perform everyday tasks and bring visualization into the picture, you'll begin to realize the situations of where you are potentially at risk from a threat. Here's a situation that a threat would probably not pass up. We're in a very confined space. We have an ATM here. If we're here, we're probably making a withdrawal. The door is placed just behind the camera, so there's not very much space, not very much reactionary time. This is one of these situations you want to heighten awareness. You may not have to utilize your firearm and go to a different technique. Our focus is here, making the transaction, and not necessarily at the door where a threat may present itself. Although overacting in this scenario for the sake of the example, by just breaking your focus or tunnel vision while performing this transaction and taking a second or two to actively observe your surroundings, you are more aware and prepared to act against a potential threat. Also, by using situational awareness, by simply noting a detail such as a door lock and engaging in it, will help to reduce your risk or gain you time if needing to react to a threat. An occurrence that seems to happen more frequently is people being attacked or theft occurring while fueling a vehicle. Again, by actively observing your environment while normally performing this task, you reduce your risk. By using visualization for what-if scenarios and forming a plan on how to counteract a threat and physically acting out the scenario during self-defense drills helps to formulate your mindset and how to react. Obviously, the cover of darkness or dimly lit areas that you encounter during your normal routine greatly increases the risks of a threat to present itself. Along with other benefits, the incorporation and use of a flashlight to quickly scan these areas increases your ability to identify these risks and potential threats. You don't have to search much further than your local news broadcast to see the type of situations that have happened to people while they perform their normal everyday activities. Using situational awareness and being aware of your environment will also help to find any concealment or cover that you may be utilizing to evade or escape a threat, or even to cut down that reactionary gap and time while engaging a threat. By all means, we're not talking about being paranoid, but objectively looking at our everyday routines to help form a stronger mindset and everyday carry self-defensive package in order to keep us from being less likely a victim or statistic. Part of your responsibility when committing to everyday carry is to be aware of and follow your federal, state, and local laws and ordinances concerning everyday carry items. Also make sure that any licenses or permits that are required are obtained and up to date. Because the laws of the ownership, transportation, and the concealing of everyday carry items varies from region to region, you want to be aware of those laws. Your mindset or your game plan may have to be changed up slightly to meet that criteria. It's always a good practice to keep on hand and easily accessible a copy of the most current laws concerning everyday carry items for self-defense. One thing you may want to consider when committing to everyday carry is to consult with an attorney or many attorneys that have experience and a proven track record dealing with self-defense cases. Make sure to keep that point of contact information handy so as you'll have legal representation and peace of mind at a very trying time. There are several organizations, including the NRA, that offer some sort of concealed carry or self-defense insurance that in the event of an unfortunate incident, your legal fees are offset by the insurance. We've talked about developing our mindsets in preparation for and seeing us through the unfortunate circumstance of where we may have to deploy self-defense techniques. Part of our mindset should be reserved for what it is that we are going to do immediately after having such an unfortunate circumstance happen to us. Chances are that law enforcement will be called to the scene. Make sure that you give a good description of yourself and the clothes that you are wearing so as you are not mistaken for the assailant. Depending on the results of the situation, you may actually have that assailant kept at bay either at gunpoint or by other means. Upon arrival of law enforcement, make sure to follow their instructions. They are there to take over the situation and to make sure that the scene is safe, which generally means that you yourself may be handcuffed or restrained in another fashion, plus your everyday carry items and weapons that you have on you will probably be seized or confiscated. Now, although you've just survived this traumatic, life-changing event, you may be eager to tell your side of the story in order to reduce the stress of the situation. However, you're probably best served by remembering the details of what happened and refrain from making any official statements or comments until your legal representation is present to speak upon your behalf. So our basis for our mindset should be set on the premise of escaping or surviving a threat, and also the responsible and discreet use of everyday carry items. Speaking of which, we may have to modify or adapt our mindset slightly as we incorporate the everyday carry items we choose for a particular situation into our daily routines, which is also a great part of continually developing a stronger mindset as we implement the everyday carry items for our particular situation. Not only the why we carry them, but the where and how we carry our everyday items in order to form a stronger self-defensive package. Many people open carry in public as a deterrent against a potential threat. However, this not only opens you up to more questions by the public, but could also identify you more easily as a potential target. You've lost the element of surprise, and a potential threat knows that you are carrying a firearm, where the firearm is, and can easily come up with a plan to use that firearm against you. By utilizing everyday carry items discreetly, you negate those risks. Also remember that in the event that your shirt becomes untucked, you now have a concealed weapon. Or in the case of a seasonal change or inclement weather, you may put on a light jacket. Now you have a concealed firearm. Depending on your location and the laws within it, this may also include other everyday carry items such as pepper spray or mace, or even pocket knives, not only in the way that they are carried, but in the way they operate. Utilizing your everyday carry items in a bag or stored in a compartment in your vehicle also makes it considered a concealed weapon. To best avoid these situations and to avoid getting yourself into a legal matter, you should probably get the proper permits and licenses for your region. I realize that I've talked and lectured a lot throughout this episode without much hands-on. However, a lot of people just don't realize or emphasize enough the importance of a mindset when it comes to your everyday carry items and as part of your complete self-defensive package. But thinking of the factors that play into your mindset will not only save you time, effort, and money in the future, but can also save your life. Now, I hope that you've enjoyed and got something out of this episode, along with the other episodes within the Everyday Carry series. If you did, please like, follow, and share Top Predators Shooting Channel.